Alrighty, everybody. Welcome to episode 5 of Drayage Junkies. Hope all y'all had a wonderful Easter weekend. Hope you made it out safe from the family and friends and all the headaches that come with holidays. But got a real exciting episode for you today. Got some good news, and we're gonna look at some vessels across the freaking globe. So everybody sit back, relax, get ready to kick some cans, and welcome to Drayage Junkies.
Trading junkies, trading junkies, trading junkies, trading junkies, trading junkies.
Mr. Talamo, Dirty Dre, how we doing today, sir?
I am doing fantastic, Hound. How are you doing? This
I'm doing good.
fine. What is today? Monday? Tuesday?
Tuesday. I know, man, dude. I'm telling you, like my weeks are getting worse and worse. Like last Tuesday, I thought it was Thursday all day long. It just messed me up, but that's what
Yeah, I
happens.
feel like the weeks
sometimes.
consist of like 3 Mondays and then a Thursday and a Friday.
Yeah, you ain't kidding, man.
The rest of the days don't. So,
None of the other days count. But
yeah.
well, how's life going in Charleston? How's the ports treating you?
It's going good. It's been really busy. Everything's been staying pretty consistent. So we've been doing very, very well. And finally got to do some riding this weekend with Dirty J and the boys. We hadn't rode in forever because it's baseball season. So none of us had tournaments this weekend, so we got to jet out and go do a little riding. So
That's good,
inducted a new member into the group. So
yeah.
One of Asher's little friends. So I'm
That's
surprised these parents talk to me anymore, man. Because every time they come with me, they go home and tell their dad or mom they want a dirt bike. So
Heck yeah.
we let them rent one for the day, and then we get them hooked, and yeah. So
Well, hey, it's a powerful feeling as a kid, man. Just taking control of the machine.
yes.
I miss it though, dude. I'm pumped to get down there and get on some bikes with y'all. But well, heck yeah, dude. Yeah, my week's been pretty all right starting off. Definitely, I'm not even doing drayage in Long Beach, and I'm feeling the repercussions of it. So I've had a customer, so they import from Italy, and dude, this container's been sitting there for like a week and a half now. They finally just got it cleared and de-stuffed. So,
we just gated one out about 5 minutes ago. That's literally been sitting at the port for 3 weeks
crazy.
before they could get it cleared. And it's crazy the money that it's costing these customers. I mean, he ended up having to spend like $3,000 in demurrage just because it took forever to get gated out to go to the exam. Then once it got back, it sat there for a little bit because they didn't have the documents in, and yeah, it's all money grab.
Yeah, that's crazy. I wish these port directors would get together and finally kick it to these freaking steamship lines, dude. Like, how insane is that? You're getting charged to merge
On
when you
something
can't
that's
even.
out of your control.
I know, like that's insane to me. But you think there'd be a tax write-off or something? But maybe someday. That's another petition that we can get started up.
There you go. Let's get the drayage world to Matt, and then we'll start the kick it to the vessel, kick it to the steamship line next.
Yeah, you got that right, man. We'll be on. I guess they wouldn't even be in Capitol Hill. We'll have to go to China or something. See how that goes for us. But I guess talking about some port congestions, man. Let's see what's going on in the world of boats.
Yeah, so normally we talk about an actual vessel, but I thought this right here was really cool to bring up. So this is all of these colors, and hopefully you guys can see it all right. All of these colors represent boats, and there's all sorts of different colors you can see on this map. So there's gray. I don't know if you see a gray on there,
Yeah,
but
Charleston.
the gray colors, they're unspecific, unspecified kind of ships. So a lot of those are probably military type ships. There's some other stuff on there
U.S.
as well.
Army Corps of Engineers right here.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then,
You have dark blue on there. Dark blue is like your cruise and your passenger type vessels.
Yep.
Yep. You got a light blue on there. Light blue is kind of like tugboats. lot of tugboats out there, but the light blues are tugboats. Yeah.
Oh, what is this one? This one's light blue. Oh, that's a Navy vessel. What the heck?
Okay. Yeah.
So I guess it does mix up. That's crazy. I haven't
hmm
seen one of those before.
If you got pink on there, pink are they are pleasure crafts.
Yep. Got a nice little yacht right there.
Mm-hmm. Red's tankers.
Look at that one.
Mm-hmm. You got
Love
peach.
it.
So this is Hunter's favorite. So the peach ones, they're all the fishing vessels.
Yeah, well, it doesn't even pop up. Let's see. I don't know. Why is that not? Oh, maybe right here. Boom. The Miss Geraldine. Not showing any pictures, but
And then and if you zoom out a little bit, you see all of the green. A lot of green on there. All of the green is cargo vessels. So there is a ton of containers on all those green dots you see on there.
dude, it's crazy.
Mm-hmm. So what I love, and this is again why I love this thing, because I can, customers looking for, and anybody can use it, right? You can go to marinetraffic.com and customers looking for their vessel, and nothing makes them feel warm and cozy than being able to tell them exactly where their vessel is on the water, when its ETA to the port's going to be, and then if you really want to impress them, you can actually let them know how fast it's going
Mm-hmm.
while it's on the water. So
Yep. And you can actually see down here like when the last satellite signal was received.
yep.
See, like this one received 34 minutes ago. It's going 9.6 knots. Look at that big
Mm-hmm.
Joan.
Yep.
That's crazy. Yeah.
So very.
Marinetraffic.com.
Yep. And there's also vessel finders. Well, one of these days we're going to get some people on here from from these websites and from these companies and talk about it. But vesselfinder.com is another good one too. I like Marine Traffic better for the vessel tracking
Mm-hmm.
part of it. I like Vessel Finder better for the actual container tracking itself.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. So, in case you're all wondering what we look at sometimes when we talk about a vessel, marinetraffic.com.
Marinetraffic.com. I love that.
What we got for news, huh?
Well, we got a little news today brought to you by trucknewshub.com. And in today's news, we're going to talk about some blank sailings. And if y'all don't know what blank sailings is, that's when the steamship line takes the right to skip ports or scheduled um, scheduled pickups and all that good jazz. So what we got going on here, we got a surge. So container shipping lines have significantly increased the blank sailings on trans-Pacific routes due to escalated U.S. China trade tensions, as reported by Sea Intelligence. Now, the capacity reduction, total blank capacity for weeks 16 through 19 has reached 367,800 TEUs, which is a pretty damn sharp rise from 60,000 TEUs, which was only 3 weeks prior. Um, just think about that. If you don't know what a TEU is, that's a 20 equivalent unit. So I guess divide that. That's how many freaking 40-foots there are. But the trade lanes impacted. It's Asia to North America West Coast capacity, so it's dropped by 12% compared to 6 weeks ago. And then Asia North American East Coast routes saw 14% capacity decline. So with the tariffs, we're still imposing a 145% tariff on Chinese goods, and we're still stuck with the retaliation from China with the 125% tariff on U.S. imports and restricted critical mineral exports. With the market volatility, Alan Murphy, CEO of Sea Intelligence, noted that a volatile political climate with tariffs changing frequently is leading the shipping lines and cargo owners to adjust to short-term supply chains. The future outlook here, Drury analysts predict continued rise in blank sailings, especially in trans-Pacific eastbound trade, with some vessels departing China with significant empty space through May. The sailing schedule is forecasted 90% of weekly departures will occur as scheduled over the next 5 weeks, with Gemini expected to achieve perfect adherence through more blank sailings. though more blank sailings could after this. Spot rate decline. Seeing WCI composite index, it fell 3% over week to week to $2,192 per 40-foot container as of April 12th, reflecting market turbulence. So I've seen some posts floating around, man. People are saying that this is gonna make the COVID days look like a freaking field day compared to. So yeah, definitely gonna have to keep up with this, man. And old Craig from Freight Waves, man, he's predicting some pretty serious backlash, and he's saying we're gonna start seeing the dip coming around in the fall time, which I hope is not true, but we'll see, man. We'll see. But got anything to add on that, Steve?
No, well, I mean, right now, I think everything, so many customers put so many containers on the water before the tariffs actually kicked in. So depending on where, some of the, not necessarily China, but some of the other customers or countries that have actually kind of backpedaled a little bit with them and came to the table for some negotiation. A lot of them put a lot of stuff on the water. So be interesting to see, like you said, what happens remainder of this year and into, in remainder of the summer, I should say, and then into the fall. So,
yeah. Well,
but
fingers crossed that everything gets finalized and things get a little bit better before they get worse. But we all know how that goes, man. One day of shake up.
Hunter, one of the things like we talked about, even with bringing drayage knowledge to everybody, right? Nobody talks about it. It doesn't get represented anywhere, but everybody's talking about it right now and starting to feel the impact now that they're talking about the tariffs, right? So drayage is extremely important to our economy, to stuff that's in our house, and we're starting to see it.
Well, and I saw a post today too on LinkedIn, and I'll end it with this, man. But someone was talking about how back during COVID, they had when things were just absolutely getting rocked, man, they had customers offer them like 200 extra bucks per container, and they denied it. They said, hey, we've been doing this, we're not seeing any repercussions from it, we'll just run normally. And I think they've only gone like 7% higher on their rates since 2020, which is not bad at all. But I mean, now you see people reaching out asking for a decline in their rate because they're getting smacked with these tariffs. So I mean, I don't know. I mean, you got to think about it on an economic scale globally. Like, you're paying more, so obviously we're gonna have to start paying more. Like,
well, I just noticed the other day I'd ordered some more swag, getting ready for large cars and guitars, and on my invoice from it actually had a tariff charge on there of like $10.
No way.
Yep.
Wow.
It did. So, but yeah, news like Hunter was saying, right? News brought to us by TruckingNewsHub.com. And speaking of TruckingNewsHub.com and our guest we're about to introduce, you can actually go to the industry news tab of TruckingNewsHub.com and scroll down, and you will find an article from Dray Insight, which talks about the drayage dispatch April 11th, which I really like the emoji that he did. But let's without further ado, man, let's bring on Towns.
Towns Agnew, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey guys.
Good afternoon, Mr. Towns.
That's a hell of an intro to get pumped up for a drayage discussion on a cloudy, rainy Tuesday afternoon. So I appreciate that.
That's
like the
right.
guy jumping rope.
That's right, brother. Well, how's your week been, man? How you surviving these days?
Like you guys, it's hard to tell if it's a Tuesday or a Thursday most days. I think we've got a lot of conversation right now on, is this kind of like COVID days? And if I'm like anybody else, then COVID kind of means the time lost all meaning. So who knows what day of the week it is.
Exactly.
But, with all the uncertainty out there, I was kind of champing at the bit in the background, listening to the review of the G Captain article and, tariffs and stuff, and just excited to talk to you guys and get into it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, let's get into it. So we know you. We've talked to you for a while, man. Been following you on LinkedIn for quite some time now. But for those that don't know you, go on and tell us, who is Towns Agnew and how'd you get to where you are today with Dray Insight?
Yeah, Hunter. Well, let me just start off with the what I always call the State of the Union. I'll give you who I am, and then we'll see if we can do a deep cut and see if we can go a little bit further back in time. But for the audience, I'm Towns Agnew. I'm the co-founder of Dray Insight. Dray Insight is a pricing solution for drayage companies to help you manage, and share your pricing with your customers in a professional manner making sure you don't miss anything like accessorials, fuel surcharges, or get hung up trying to get a quote out the door. So that's what we're there to do. Our job is to help drayage carriers, primarily those with assets, make more money and respond to more quotes more quickly. A lot of brokers and folks on the other side have kind of weaponized quote volume. And we see ourselves as the tool for the carrier to respond and to kind of stay in the fight and keep up with the number of emails and quotes they get in their inbox. So that's who I am. My background, I started off in the industry at a manufacturer called Steel. You guys have all probably seen those orange chainsaws and weed whackers and stuff. So worked there in Virginia Beach, Virginia. After that, I went to Norfolk Southern for a little over a year. I worked on domestic and international intermodal pricing. There we go. And Ethan, for you, this is my call out. This is my street cred. This is a little something I bought myself back when I first started working for Norfolk Southern. This is all like metal pieces that were found on the Norfolk Southern train tracks in Norfolk back in like 2010. And then actually, I don't think you can see it in the background, but it's actually a little guy on a train. So this was me patting myself on the back for working at my dream company after business school. But from there, I went to Maersk, moved down to Houston, and that's where I started working on drayage really for the first time, not just on like the box pricing, but actually on like drayage procurement for the ocean carriers, getting into different markets, running those negotiations. During COVID, because nobody could find dray power, I went to CMA CGM for a really short stint. And then from there, went to a company called Cargomatic, which is a VC-backed digital broker, and spent 2 years there working on strategic projects. And then afterwards left, started a business with my co-founder, John Sinton. And the problem we were trying to solve is why on earth does nobody have centralized dray pricing? No matter which company you go to, there's no single source of truth. It's either in somebody's email or somebody's head. And as a longtime procurement guy, that really bothered the living hell out of me. I could never get a straight answer for why a rate was a rate. And I wanted to make that a little bit easier for everybody else so that they could sleep at night and not have to think about drayage pricing all the time. They go back to operations. Hunter, you made one comment in the intro that I thought was really interesting. So you mentioned that since 2020, we're basically 5 years out from when COVID first started. Rates in the drayage industry went up 7%, if I remember your number correctly. Have you
yeah. So one gentleman raised his only 7%. I can't speak for the whole industry, but
let's just throw it out there as an average. I don't think anybody really has a good index because I think that's the whole problem, right? There is no transparency about rates, but even if that's true, think about that versus inflation. Like he's probably 4 or 5% below inflation. So, dollar for dollar, he's charging less today than he did in 2020. That is insane. That is absolutely crazy. Like everything is more expensive from eggs to trucks. And this guy's out there moving the world and is charging less money for the privilege of sitting in line at the port.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's one thing he did say. He was like, yeah, 7%, but that's way less than the cost of operating a truck, but like you said, man, there's no regulation in these pricing. And then, depending on what port you're at, man, you got those bottom feeders that will just shoot the lowest rate they can just to get that business. And I don't know, it's just not sitting right with me, man. Like, because I've been worked around by people like that, but also like it just puts a bad taste in people's mouth, like come in there saying you can do it for this rate, and then boom, service failures left and right. And then people like Steve out here that are doing a good thing,
Well, and what too is like think about, and we were just talking about a little bit ago, right? How many the money that people will pay when things go into demurrage or for detention, or things can sit out on customs exam, and the money that they pay, that they have to do it, they have to pay it. But yet if a carrier wants to raise $100 on a rate, or wants to charge for congestion or whatever, it's all hell breaks loose and they're ready to drop you in a second. Well, why don't they drop, stop going through Maersk, go through a different steamship? They don't do that, right? They don't switch up steamship lines to get their stuff here. They'll pay whatever the hell they say. But, the carriers have to take the blunt of it if they try to make a little bit extra so they can, maybe go out and have a nice dinner with their family instead of eating, rice-a-roni.
Yeah. I mean, or what's worse, nice dinner with the family, but even just keeping the truck, maintained, doing your PMI, doing your maintenance, that's the kind of stuff that gets left at the wayside with the bottom barrel rates. So not only are you asking somebody to probably not provide for their family, but you're also asking them to not maintain the truck, which puts an unsafe rig on the road.
Yep.
And you got the guy, and then you got a driver that's worried about paying bills and things, versus the extra $20 that really would have gone a long way to helping them out. And look, at the end of the day, it's, we've got a difference in owner operators versus, fleets. Everybody's got a little bit of a different cost base. But, I think the thing that I always think about, and I'd love to see some data that proves this, is I would love to see at the end of if we took like an annual budget, what percentage of like chassis or other accessorials do a BCO pay versus the steamship line pay versus the carrier themselves. And I'm convinced that like if you looked at like a large BCO and if you said they did $100,000 in chassis expenses for the year, just as a random number, they probably only pay 90% of that. The steamship line probably eats a little bit, but the guy that's paying more than their fair share is the carrier.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of like an unsung or an undiscussed piece, like whether it's empty returns or who ends up footing the bill. It's like small entrepreneurial carriers end up footing the bill for BCOs and carriers. And I think that's or ocean carriers. I think it's really unfair. Like this is a small company. It's an American company, and it's just not fair that the industry dynamics are set up to really step on the little guy. I mean, what do you do? You're already getting paid at 90 days and you're going to go out and dispute a chassis charge for, probably hundreds of pieces of paperwork that are hard to track down.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a really weird dynamic, and I'll get off my high horse here, but it's just a really weird dynamic that our industry has kind of developed into.
No, absolutely. And dude, that still makes no sense to me. Like we were talking about earlier, like the fact that, you agree to pick up a container, it gets there, but you have no power to go in there and pull it. Yeah, you're getting stuck with that bill. Like, make that make sense to me. Like,
it doesn't, right? And it's like, so I keep jumping in. You guys are the old hands here, so I'm getting used to being on the podcast. But you're also waiting on somebody else to declare it free, and then you've got to go pick it up on their schedule. I mean, Steve, I feel like you're the operator here, but I mean that's like how often does that become an issue?
I mean, we had one yesterday. I mean, I got a customer that his last 3 containers he's had have literally been stuck at the port. The last one that we just literally gated out 5 minutes before we got on this call. Actually, the guy's texting me right now, literally saying, "Hey, it's out." That's our boy at Paperboy. He's picking up one for us right now and taking it to a customer that thing's been literally sitting in the port for 3 weeks, and because it had to go to a customs exam. But yet they paid it yesterday. I think the customer paid all the demurrage and everything yesterday at like 12 o'clock, 12:30ish. They still didn't clear it until 5:45 this morning. Well, he only paid it through yesterday. So now it goes back into it released for like 5 minutes and then went back in on hold. And then he had to call in again this morning and pay another $320 to be able to get it out today so that we got it out for him today. And it's like they hold it hostage. And, I'm always on the phone with the steamship line and I'll have a joint call because one wants to blame it on the other, right? Port wants to blame it on the steamship line. Steamship line wants to blame it on the port. So I kill that. And I'll do a joint call or a joint email with the port and the steamship line. Okay, port, why isn't that released? Oh, it's a steamship line. And I'll reply, okay, steamship line, re-upload it or whatever it is that they need. And, I think it's purposely done. I think it's purposely done to drive revenue, both for the port because they get the demurrage charges, and for the steamship lines, and they get some of this stuff as well. So it's sad because at the end of the day, all of that stuff ends up either putting the small guy out of business or it gets turned over and the consumer winds up eating it by increased pricing. So.
Yeah, I mean, I can only tell you from sitting in the chair at the shipping line, I can't. I would love to see the number of like how many of those email threads that I have to review, and I wasn't even a dispatcher, so thinking about it from a procurement lens of like having to unwind all of those conversations and who said what when and at what point, what time of day, and all that kind of stuff. And I always kind of like chalk it up to don't attribute to malice, what's probably just like bureaucracy or incompetence. I mean, most of the time it's just delays in getting into an inbox, and they've got 300 emails they're trying to sort through. But it really is a shame that things just can't happen faster and a little bit more proactively. Like, there's really no reason for you to have to be on the phone with a steamship line and the port authority or the terminal operator to be able to resolve, a charge on one box. That's pretty nuts.
Oh, and you got to do it all the time. I mean, it's and I we kind of got into this system of we'll send an email first so that we have a case number, and then I don't even give it 15 minutes, and then I call them because I'm like, it's going to sit in somebody's inbox till the next morning, till they finally feel like reading it. So I'll give it about 15 minutes, then I'll call them. And now I'm referencing the case number that I just provided, so I don't have to go through and give them all the information that I already gave them in an email. I give them the case number. It takes them 2 seconds. They pull it up, and now they got all the information they need to go ahead and fix the problem for them. And most of the time, it's stupid EIRs that just need to be updated or whatever. But it takes time, and they like I said, I'll die on the sword with this one. I think they purposely do it to drive revenue. I think the delays are purposely done.
Yeah, I mean, man, you've got my blood pressure rising just thinking about this, like anticipating like that 4:30 on a Friday military container that like nobody can deal with and needs to go like 8 hours in a 5-hour window or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like I'm getting nervous and having a breakdown just thinking about it.
Well, and what's scary, and it was actually something that our sister show, Stop the Scam, actually was talking about yesterday on their podcast, right? It's talking about freight theft, right? And nobody really talks about, I mean, think about it. You drive around and you'll see containers dropped anywhere and everywhere, right? In gas station parking lots. There's nothing hooked to it. But these guys are just trying to get these containers out of the port to save their customer money from it going back into demurrage or whatever. And they're putting such a huge risk on it by getting these things out and drop. Because not all these small owner operators have yards. They don't have places to put them. They're not the big, the big carrier companies that have these big secured lots. They're dropping them everywhere. You see these things parked everywhere. I saw a thing up today coming from Savannah. There was they literally had them parked on the side of the road, unhooked. Really? Nothing. Yeah, and there was cops literally sitting there getting ready to tow these containers. But it's scary. And
I didn't catch yesterday's episode. I mean, freight theft is definitely top of mind. We actually just published an article on Sunday. We have like a Sunday history article, and this past week we since it was Easter Sunday, we had a little bit of fun. We wrote about a cyber criminal in Rotterdam. I don't know if you guys saw this, but basically the guy just knew how to access the systems and was like spoofing containers and pulling them out, which was pretty interesting. But I am kind of curious, like, I mean, are we seeing a larger uptick in freight theft in the dray world specifically? It's not something I'm really in touch with. And, when you talk about like going to owner operators for like the cheapest possible rate and then leaving containers on the side of the road because they have nowhere to park them, like it seems like freight theft would be up, especially with all the information around like being able to target specific shipments.
Yeah, I think where it shows it more on the news is more when it's on the rails. So it's the containers that are being opened on the rails, and you see them, grabbing all the TVs and all the stuff out of it on the rail. It doesn't. I mean, there is a huge. I mean, we've got a customer that shares a parking lot with one of our customers, and they stole a couple containers on chassis, right out of that parking lot. So I think it's out there. It's out there a lot, but you don't see that much of it from that standpoint of it in the news. It's more of when these containers are on rail yard or rails, and they're being stolen off of that, and they're being opened up, and the theft is coming from there.
Yeah, I mean, when you're saying like the TVs, I think we're all thinking the same video back from Chicago, a couple years ago, and people were like hanging on the side pulling TVs. Remember when it was like frozen shrimp or something? You remember that one? Like they were doing the same thing, and they're like just throwing boxes or bags off the side of the train while it was moving. I mean, that's terrifying.
Yeah, toilet paper a couple of years ago. I mean,
I bet Hunter was in that group too. He just didn't tell us.
Oh yeah, dude. That was nuts. But yeah, I mean, it got proven to be inside jobs, man. Like, there's no way that you have a 2 mile long train and they just know that's where those TVs are. So I don't know. But yeah, to your point, Steve, like you don't really see theft too much at the ports, but like the only time I've seen it, it's like accidental. I had one customer, they'd be bringing in like upwards of 500 cans a week, and they had 3 separate yards, and then like they drop, and then they'd bring them out to their customers' facilities. So you'd have these guys in there that are just shuttling back and forth, and Lord knows how long they've been up. I mean, I know some cats, they'd stay up for like 2-3 days straight just shuttling. So I had one guy, he almost got hit by a truck that like swooped in, backed in, took his container. I was on the phone with him when it happened. He was like, dude, this guy just stole this container. Like, I had to run in and call my customers. So you gotta watch
some
out
people
for
have the
guys,
misconception that it gets stolen out of the port, right? Which there's enough securities and enough checkpoints. It's hard to steal it physically out of the port. It's once it actually gets out of the port, and then it gets dropped in all kinds of weird places, or winds up, backed up to a U-Haul truck, being unloaded in the cross docking. But yeah, so I think it's the misconception of actually being stolen from the actual port itself versus once it gets gated out and it gets left somewhere where it shouldn't be and secured, and then all of a sudden it's at a pawn shop somewhere being unloaded.
Yeah. Is Ethan being for real? They have goggles that can look into the containers.
I don't know. I thought he made that up. I just thought it was funny, but maybe they do. I'll tell you what, he probably would know.
Towns, did you deal with any of that when you were at Norfolk Southern? Oh, it was just a joke. I was about to say that's
No, I mean, we weren't really, the stuff that really came up while I was there. I mean, because I was going through their training program, was also like doing a lot of like the finance stuff. So like the quarterly earnings reports and pricing things. But the thing that really stands out to me back then was one, I got to drive a locomotive, which was pretty cool. Highly recommend if you haven't been on out on the train tracks. They're pretty cool places in the country that nobody really notices. But really the big thing was the Mississippi drought was like top of mind in like 2012. Like that was the big thing, is the river levels were so low that the railroads were trying to figure out how they could convert traffic that had previously been on barge onto the railroad. And that was like kind of the major topic at the time. We were still kind of in that post 2008, 2009 recovery. So things were good. We hadn't really hit the next slowdown in 2015 or the ELD crisis of 2018. But no, Hunter, the short answer is no. There wasn't really as much freight theft, but it is kind of cool that the railroads also have their own police departments, which I've always thought was kind of fascinating.
heck yeah, man. The bulls. I watch some videos, man. The vagabonds, those hobos that jump trains and stuff. And I learned a lot from that, man. Those guys are crazy smart. Did you run into some of those? Did you ever walk the cars and?
No, I mean, I'm only occasionally, but it was like I was in like the training program, so I spent 6 months out like on the railroad doing rotations with like maintenance way, with the locomotive crews, all that kind of stuff. But I mean, you're still kind of the office guy that's like not out really in the element. They're trying to teach you the railroad, and it was really cool. But I didn't really have to deal with vagabonds or people tramping around or anything like that.
Yeah, well, that's awesome, man. So, what was your favorite spot that you got to ride the train through?
Favorite train? I don't know about the favorite train. We were.
I mean, like area that like you got to like ride.
Yeah, we were
through,
like Western Virginia, not West Virginia, but like Western Virginia coal country. That was pretty cool. We were out with like the maintenance away crew doing like literally like hammering in new railroad ties, new gravel, reconditioning the track, and that was pretty cool. I don't know if you guys have ever seen like the maintenance away cars. They basically have like individual cars that like will bring out like the ties, and they can replace the ties while the car is moving. They can put the gravel out there. They can repair the track itself with like that really like spot molding, where I think they pour like that liquid metal stuff that like will like light up phosphorus, and it'll like do like a spot weld. So all that stuff is pretty cool. If you've never had to like do that, like the John Henry like railroad hammer where you're hitting in the railroad pins, like that's actually really hard. You're on the other side of the metal beam trying to hammer that in. So that was pretty cool. But I think my favorite like transportation like experience was getting to go through the Panama Canal. Like that was pretty cool. So we like took the pilot vessel out to the Maersk vessel, did the whole transit through, and then like you get off the other side and like you got to climb down to the pilot vessel when they go back in. That was probably the most interesting thing. So we also got to like you get to see the Panama Canal. They were still working on the new set of locks. But you get to see like how big the engine rooms are and things like that. So I think that was like hands down like one of the cooler things I've gotten to do.
That is pretty awesome. So yeah. So what sparked the transition from Norfolk over to Maersk?
End of the day, I was a young single guy, and port cities are more interesting than railroad cities. I'd always kind of hoped to like live overseas and do some kind of cool like business stint in like Hong Kong or something like that. But it was just a chance to do something new. It seemed like a really good, professional opportunity for me at the time, and got to move out of Norfolk and move to Houston, which is a big city. That was pretty cool. I basically lived as a consultant for like 4 years and like traveled around to like Vancouver and did a lot of time in Panama, did some South America. I just got to do a lot of really interesting, fun things as like a guy in his early 30s that hadn't been in business before, because I was in the Army before I joined Norfolk Southern, and it was just like a new experience for me to get to do some fun, cool stuff.
That's awesome, man. And then tell the story about. Go on, Steve.
No, I was gonna say. I mean, you were talking. You don't realize how big those vessels are until you're in a little tiny boat, out there. I remember I was pulling up near one I was on my pontoon boat, which, I mean, my pontoon boat felt big until it gets up on the side of that thing and you feel like you're in a little freaking dinghy out there and you're just looking up there. I mean, they're mammoth when you look at them, you know, and on pictures, and even when you just see them docked at the port. But when you're up on the side of one of them, out the water, right on the water, man, those things are huge.
They are. I mean, Steve, you might appreciate this because you'll probably remember it. And Hunter, I don't know if you'll remember this one, but I was in Norfolk in like 2000. I think it was 2006 when the first triple E class vessel called Norfolk, Virginia was the Emma Maersk, and was like out on the water on like a little like sailboat dinghy as like it got like paraded in. And like the size of those things was just mind blowing. And like today they'd be considered pretty small.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
When you look at the history,
nut
the ones that are coming out now, they've come out the last couple of years, make those things look, because I forgot what it was. I watched, it was one of the Maersk ships, and I forgot which one it was. But we watched a documentary on TV when they built it, and I actually went on and looked it up, and it was like 15 years old or whatever. But at the time, that thing was like, you know, the biggest vessel out there. And now,
I bet that was the triple E class. I bet that was the Emma Maersk kind of a class, and they were like the biggest vessels at the time to call the East Coast. And you know, it's like our ports are like such different sizes. Like New York and the Bayonne Bridge kind of dictated what they would bring in for a string, versus like these massive like Asia to Europe vessels that are like the really, really big boys.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, I think up and down the East Coast, it was just like, it got like some kind of like city level parade basically on the water every time it called as like a PR stunt. It was really
They
cool.
did that just recently. I forgot what, it was an OEN vessel. I forgot which one it was, but it came to Charleston. It was the largest vessel that was here. And then it went to Savannah. And when it went into Savannah, the tugs, while it was going down the thing going into Savannah, they were shooting water up at it as it was going down in there. So it was pretty neat to see that. But
do you remember how much, like, what its TEU like capacity was?
it was like 22,000, because I think the biggest one is what, 24,000 or something like that. I think
that's right.
It was big, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was huge. And but it could see in Charleston, you can only go to, like, certain ships can't even go to North. So there's three ports here, right? You got Hugh Leatherman, you got Wando, and you got North Charleston. There's a lot of vessels that can't even go to North Charleston because it can't fit under the bridge, the Don Holt Bridge, which they're eventually going to tear down and rebuild it. But when they built the big bridge there, the Ravenel, they made that so big vessels can go under there. But you got Hugh Leatherman and Wando that the big ones can go to, but they're limited on what they can send to North Charleston because they can't get under the bridge.
Yeah. Yeah. To think you live in a world where like you can fit 22,000 boxes on something, and the capacity limitation is how big is the bridge?
Right. Seriously. Yeah. Yep.
That's crazy. But yeah, so Towns, man, tell us that story about you finding the bell.
I was just gonna say.
So after I moved to Houston from Maersk, I eventually found my way back here to Charlotte, which is where I live now. And there's this, like, so all ships have the ship's bell, and the ship's bell is like, you know, it's the thing that you clang on, but it's always got some kind of engraving on it with the ship's name and its commissioning date. And there was this tradition at Maersk, well, two traditions, that offices would have we wanted to get like a way to celebrate. And there was this tradition that you could like basically reach out to Maersk's company historian that's based in Copenhagen, and you could ask for a bell. And the historian would basically do his research, he'd do his history books, and he'd find like a bell that was tied to a vessel that had some kind of connections to your office or to your operation. So the one we ended up with in Charlotte, and I think it's still there because it was sitting next to my desk, was for the Mayview Maersk. And the Mayview Maersk was the first of the Panamax class vessels that Maersk commissioned. And what made it interesting was two things. One was, how did they come up with the size of the Panamax class vessel? And you'd think that the easy answer was, well, an engineer would tell you how big the Panama Canal is, and then you'd give it to your marine engineer that designs the vessels, and they'd say, well, this is the capacity. Well, it turns out nobody had done that when they built these. So the former, or the late Mr. Maersk or Mr. Muller basically said, how big should this be? And nobody could answer the question. So the next result was, well, get your butt on a plane, get down to Panama and find out. And I don't know if the story is true or if it's apocryphal, but it sure as hell makes for a great story. But the other part of this is that Mayview is a city in Kansas. And Mayview is where the Muller-Maersk family basically spent World War II. So they fled Copenhagen. They fled Denmark and they lived in Mayview, Kansas during the war. So they were here in the United States, which kind of speaks to like the special relationship between Maersk in the United States and then the Danes in the United States. But that's the story of the Mayview Maersk Belle that lives at Arrowwood Boulevard here in Charlotte, North Carolina, for Maersk's Operations Center. And if you have a really big project and you land a good deal, you get to ring the bell and scare the living hell out of everybody, because it turns out ship bells are really loud, so nobody actually wants to ring it. But yeah, it's really cool, and I mean it's really just interesting and kind of fascinating. Like, these things are saved. Like, there's literally like a warehouse that has all these bells, and it's like when the ship gets decommissioned and it gets broken up, you save the bell, which is pretty cool. I find that kind of stuff just fascinating and interesting.
I think one of the most fascinating and interesting things about doing this show is when you meet people like you, that you have no clue the background that people have. I mean, we do a little bit of, we got some research on people as we're getting ready to bring them on the show, and what we thought was some really cool stuff about you. And then once we got on the phone with you that day and we were hearing all these stories, man, it's pretty neat.
Yeah, I'm sure we get into some even funnier a time when something happened in the Army kind of stories. If it was Friday at 5 and we were
right
on something different, I can tell you that those are more face to face kind of stories. But yeah, I mean,
we got to bring back Freestyle Friday.
We got to bring back Freestyle Friday,
and then bring Towns on that.
Yeah, you got to somehow link it to like TEUs or something like that. So it's like you got to freestyle through a few sips for based on the number of TEUs into Charleston or something.
Yes, sir.
So, but yeah, I mean, you guys have kind of been pulling some stuff out of me. But like, any interesting stories that people would want to know and from your backgrounds?
I don't have a whole lot of interesting. Stuff. Like, it's weird though when you think about. We lived in Charleston. My wife and I lived in Charleston for about 4 years. I worked for Pepsi for 25 years before my business partner and I started Cleves Logistics and started doing this. But it's, there's something about, which is why I love when Hunter reached out to me about doing this podcast. There's something about drayage that just sticks with you, man. And it's exciting. It's cool. And, to be in a port, to live in a port city like this and have the ports right here and continue to see in the growth that the Charleston ports are putting together with not only here, but also with the inland ports as well, and Greer and Dillon. But nothing really, like, no crazy interesting stories, but just the stuff that you see every day. Not even stuff that we do, but just stuff that you see inside these ports every day, and the different stuff is pretty cool. And the stuff that we export from this country that you don't realize that we've talked about on the show is just it's neat. It's never a dull moment in the drayage world. I can say that.
Yeah, it's never a dull moment. I tell you what, I feel like we always kind of like, you look at like when you look at like the gates for a terminal, it's like easy to like look at like one gate. But if you really step back and like look at like the throughput and like all the trucks that are like going in and out on that road at any given time, it's incredible how much industry and how much is really happening at the port at any given time. Like, it's not, they don't sleep, they don't shut down. There's always something going on. And the amount of stuff you can fit into a single container that's then being moved off of the port or into the port at any given second is really kind of, it's hard to get your head around it. And everybody jokes about the old, like, everything you touched was delivered by a truck.
Yeah.
But the thing that people like kind of forget about like that, it's not just like the book that's in your hand or the mouse on your desk. It's like literally the building you're in was delivered by a truck. The drywall was delivered by a truck. The timber was delivered by a truck. The people showed up in a truck. Like, literally everything you were sitting inside of was delivered by a truck, from like skyscrapers down to your home to your car. It's unreal. And a huge amount of that comes from the port as well. So yeah, I agree. I think they're fascinating.
And to your point, if you ever want to go on and see, especially in the mornings, right? You got your different shifts, but if you ever want to go on, there you go. Yeah. On truckingnewshub.com, we got the port cams. We have Wando on there, or we got all the Charleston ports. We got Long Beach, and we also have Houston on there as well. Eventually, we'll add some more. But yeah, I mean, just sometimes it's just fun just to sit there and watch the line, man. Especially in the morning, like whenever everybody's lining up before they open the security gate out front, but they haven't opened up the kiosk yet, and just watch all the trucks just line up. And sometimes you can see some dumb shit. You can see some drivers doing some really dumb shit on these live cameras, and yeah, they're you always try to guess, play the game of guess. If you look real close, I think we got a couple trucks in that line, maybe. But it's try to guess what's in those containers, right? Play a guessing game, and because these things come in, and some of those are empty, some of those are got exports on there that could have anything from chicken feed to tires to recycled metal. I mean, it's you never know what can be in these containers that are coming and going from this country.
No kidding. So, Towns, what's the craziest thing you've dealt with in your experience of being a drayage junkie?
Oh, I mean, I've always been on like the procurement end. So like operations, I've always been kind of next to it, but not necessarily directly in it. But the craziest thing, honestly, I tend to think about like the most stressful things for me.
Yeah.
Because like being the head of procurement during COVID, I mean, there weren't enough chassis, there weren't enough trucks, there weren't enough parking spaces to go around. So that was always kind of nuts. I think one of the strangest things that ever happened was a dispute over a refrigerated export, Steve, of blood plasma that had like basically got stuck at the port. The temp wasn't controlled accurately and all the blood plasma went bad. So when you think about a 20-foot container full of human blood plasma that is just stuck on the port and kind of went a little bit raw, that's a that's a big bill to settle, and it's a little bit gross to think about, but that's definitely one of the weirder ones. Honestly, Hunter, the one that always kind of had me doing head scratchers, like an import reefer that was like hard frozen and military, and for some reason was considered hazardous. I'm like, is this how they move the aliens around? I don't know, but it's like, what on earth is this thing?
Yeah, I've never even thought about like military port work. Like, there's no telling what's in there. I mean,
no, it's who knows what it is like, but it's probably like the what were those things that we used to drink, the knockoff Red Bull, the Rippets. Have you guys ever had Rippets?
mm-hmm.
That's probably have to like hard freeze that so it can go bad in transit.
That's funny.
We had an export container one time of metal that the guy that was loading it forgot to get the radiation read off of it. So we actually gated it in. Everything was good, and we got a call. We had to literally go back and pick the container up from the port to drive it 2.5 hours to literally get a picture of a radiation read that took like 3 seconds to then turn around and bring it back to the port and get it back in.
What was it? Was this one of you said this was metal?
Yeah, a lot of them you got to do. Some of this recycling stuff requires. I don't know if it's the country that it's going into, but it requires them to have an actual a read on it, like to make sure that it's not radioactive or whatever. Like they require it to have. So
isn't there like a fruit that does this? Like bananas throw off like a radiation signature or something kind of wonky. Have you guys heard of this?
I don't know.
I'll have to like Google this now. I feel like there's like some fruit that can like trip the radiation exam on the way in. Let's see if Google has the answer. If I'm just making this up, fruit trip radiation exam imports. Google can answer anything.
Yeah, it is bananas.
It is bananas.
40. Oh, it's naturally radioactive. What the heck?
Yeah.
Potassium 40.
I tell you what, guys. We need like after this, you need a relaxed Friday one, and then we need to do like a drayage like trivia or drayage bingo throughout the week as a way to bring this stuff up. We can work in the radioactive banana somehow.
Saying oranges has the same thing. That's crazy.
I wonder why that is. Huh. Oh, it's part. It says it's part of the sanitization. So it's like irradiated to kill stuff on it, and then it might keep trace radiation.
All right, so don't eat banana peels.
Yeah, probably not the best.
Yeah, gross. But so let's talk a little bit more about Dray Insight, man. I'm interested about this rate tool that you have going on. How have you guys been approaching that? Like,
yeah. So I'll try to keep it from being too boring. I'm a bit of a finance nerd, so people will eyes tend to roll in the back of their heads whenever I do a demo. But what the problem we're trying to solve is we work with like small to mid-sized carriers. So what I mean by that is carriers are typically operating somewhere between 20 and 50 trucks per terminal. And the question we normally get is, well, how do I put all of my rates in one place and make sure either my dispatcher can see it, my sales rep can quote somebody when they're out with them, and do this in a way that's not in Excel, or I've got somebody on my staff that knows all the rates and he or she is retiring, and I need to get all that knowledge out of their head into some system so that the rest of the team knows what's going on. So Dray Insight basically helps us solve that spot quoting problem today. And then in a couple months, we'll solve the same question for multi-quote and RFQ. But what we do in its simplest is you put your pricing logic into our system, and then whenever a quote comes in the door, you can type in the from and to, and the system will spit the rate back out for you based on your costs and your margin expectations, including any accessorials on your accessorial table. If it's the customer accessorial, we'll lay those on as well. If it's customer fuel, we'll take that into account. But this way, like if Steve is doing a quote for Charleston to Greer, he wants to charge a 25% markup. He's using an owner op. All he has to do is type in Charleston to Greer, and the system will auto-generate that. If you want to go a step further, you can also build out an accessorial, or not accessorial, a tariff table. So if you want to do like a lot of point-to-point pricing, you can build that in as well and issue quotes directly from that. But it's essentially a tool that helps you answer the question of how do I get a rate out the door in seconds that's accurate without having to go call somebody else for approval every single time I want to do it. One of the problems we see is like a dispatcher gets nervous. They need to call the terminal managers to send a quote. And it's just kind of a waste of everybody's time because you could do other things like talk to the driver, talk to the customer, ask more discovery questions. So our tool really just helps you get quotes out the door, track them, manage those pricing in the future, and at the same time, try to give you some time back to your day. We like to say that on average, using our system will save you 10x the amount of time it takes to do a quote today. It'll also save you time down the road for disputes when you have to go look up something out of your email and can't find it. But that's what we do. And our goal is to be an inexpensive product for asset-based dray carriers today. In the future, we're probably going to expand into brokerage as well. But our core focus is the dray carrier because they're kind of underserved. Steve, I don't know what kind of TMS you use, but a lot of the things that come to mind were developed 20, if not 25 years ago. They have no APIs. They only look at pricing. I don't know if this joke will land with you guys, but when I talk to a lot of our prospective customers, it's the old underpants gnomes joke from South Park. Step 1, drayage, step 3, profit. And I'm like, well, there's something in between here, right, guys? And so there's a lot of tools out there that talk about what do you charge the customer, but there's not a lot of analysis of like, what's my cost base, what's my margin, and what should I charge the customer on top of that? So we try to be a little bit more holistic. Let me stop ranting. That's essentially what we do. We are also soft launching right now, Steve, in your market, a new market intelligence tool that we just call rates at drayinsight.com. Carriers are uploading their actual TMS exports to the system. We are providing benchmarking on their pricing back to them for free. So if anybody listening in the audience operates in Savannah or Charleston, you can go to rates.drayinsight.com. We have a little AI tool that will walk you through the upload. It's free for carriers. And the goal is to try to avoid going and undercutting yourself with those bottom barrel rates and give a little bit of intelligence back to the carriers because so much of the intelligence is being weaponized by brokers and BCOs and shipping lines who have 20, 30, 40 quotes for every lane. So when they say, give me your best rate, now you can push back and say, hey, I'm not an owner operator. I'm actually going to park your container in a yard. And that's why I deserve $30 more on this shipment than somebody else. And by the way, you're asking me to meet this rate on a 500 shipment a week business. And that guy that can charge you $300, he's only got one driver. So we're not really comparing apples to apples here.
Yeah. I mean, that was one of the things when I first got into this, right? Somebody told me like treat every single one like it's a one move, right? Because customers will come at you and be like, oh, there's 500 of these, right? So give me your best quote, and then you do one of them and you never hear from the guy again. I actually brought this up back in 2023 when I was at the Broker Carrier Summit, and I actually met a customer through this because I brought it up and I said, why does nobody talk about customer service and drayage?
Yep.
All everybody wants to talk about is what's the cheapest rate you can give me. And that's the discussion. That's all they want to hear. I mean, almost every email that you get, give me your best rate, give me your cheapest rate, give me, and nobody wants to, it's one of the few industries or whatever that's not customer service focused, right? But if you drop the ball on something, then yeah, they want to talk about customer service. but the first thing to everybody's mind is how cheap can you do this? So
let me try to. I love all of the things you're saying. Let me see if I can come back on a few of those points. I mean, on the customer service front, I completely agree. It's like everything is fine until it's not fine.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like the old, like your grandfather, your grandmother, or the old hand used to say, is like, you're going to pay for it one way or the other. Like if you could just have a productive conversation with the customer and say, look, I can give you the $200 rate, but you're going to pay for it on the customer service side, whether that's collections, disputes, missed deliveries, last free days being missed. Like someone's going to pay for that somewhere. So why don't you just have a better expectation of what your pricing is going to be up front? And then we don't have to go through all this rework of invoices, DOs, redispatches down the road. So I think there's a way to have that conversation, but I think you have to do it with numbers. And I say that just as like the guy that used to be on the other side of the table, that if you could articulate to me that if I'm going to charge you $50 more up front, but here's how I'm going to fix your process. It was something I probably would have listened to. In retrospect, I think that at the time it probably would have been a little bit harder because somebody was beating on my back saying, hey, you need to lower the rates. But on you made me think of like when you said treat each one like it's a single load. The trap I think I see a lot of people getting into is like the loss leader idea. Like I'll take this shipment and it's going to lose me money, but I'm going to prove to my customer how loyal I am.
Mm-hmm.
Well, congratulations. Not only should you not treat that as a one-off shipment, you're just going to get awarded that loss leader because you're now the cheapest guy on the totem pole there. And you better bet you're going to get all that freight. And now you're subsidizing your customer. So while it sounds great in like theory, I don't think it really proves out in practice. And so I'm a huge believer in what you just said, which is have the right economics on every shipment. Yeah.
I mean, we, from the beginning, right, for us, it was about know your worth, right? And if we're going to move that truck, it's going to be, it's going to be something that's worth it. If not, then there's no point in moving it, right? Because I mean, you're one flat tire, then that cheap rate that cheap lane you just ran, like you lost money on it, right? I mean, there's so many things going on. And I've had discussions with a lot of different carriers, competitors, friends, right? And some people look at more quantity than quality. I'm more of the quality versus quantity, right? I mean, I would rather have the quality of a shipment and move less than just moving that truck and moving those wheels just to get the numbers in. And that's what's hard. I mean, that's what some brokers, I mean, when we started our brokerage division of Cleves, like I'm focused on, looking for the right carriers to provide the right customer service. I'm not looking for, the person, and I'm not going to win every one of them. And I know I'm not, but I'm not looking for the cheapest out there. And I want to take care of the carriers. I want to take care of the customer because at the end of the day, that's what's going to bring everybody back and keep everybody happy.
Yeah. I love that. I don't like it. I mean, I never sit there and I try not to pretend to be the smartest guy in the room because God knows I'm not, but it's like, I'm not there to we try to be very consultative when we demo with people and we kind of talk about their business processes. Really my goal is just to say, or I challenge people just have your strategy and follow it. We're not here to tell you what the right strategy is, but be intentional about how you're going to market and what you're trying to do rather than just trying to be all things to all people, because then you're not going to satisfy any customers and it's going to be hard to articulate that value proposition.
Yep.
Well, gentlemen, we're getting about to that hour point, and isn't it crazy how fast time flies when you're having fun?
I know, right? we really need to start making these things more like 2-hour calls or 2-hour podcasts.
Yeah, we might have to bump it back an hour because I got weekly meetings now starting at 1:00. So yeah, we might have to bump it to 11. But before we jump out of here, Towns, do you have any exiting comments, concerns, plugs? Where can people find you?
Yeah, I appreciate it. So you can find me on LinkedIn at Towns Agnew. You can find Dray Insight at drayinsight.com. We have our news articles up. You can also look at our rate feature, which is rates at drayinsight.com, or you can look at our quoting app, which is app at drayinsight.com. So all those wonderful things. But guys, I think the most important thing is to say thank you for inviting me on. This was a blast. I was really excited when you guys reached out, like, hey, do you want to come on? Because not everybody wants to talk drayage. So it's fun to come hang out with the junkies who are all about it. So I really appreciate it. This was great to get to know you, and I hope we can do it again sometime in the future.
Yeah, absolutely, brother. And you are now an official drayage junkie. I know you've been a drayage junkie before, but anytime you want to come on, see a guest that you want to chat it up with, you got any updates, you just want to hang out, let us know. You're always welcome, man.
Appreciate it. Well, Hunter, Steve, guys, this was a blast. I really appreciate the time.
Absolutely, brother. Thank you. Well, before we jump, Steve, how about yourself, sir?
Um, I don't really have anything to close out this. I agree, right? This was a great conversation, and from the minute we had that call where the three of us were on, I mean, I knew it was going to be a good show. Your insights and just your knowledge of the business, man, is nice, and I like the fact that you have something out there for drayage, right? For drayage carriers, right? I mean, that there's nobody seems to care about us, and people that create the tools and have the resources to help us do better is awesome. So,
Yep.
Oh, I appreciate that. It's I guess I have two things I want to add. One is it's also like for Dray carriers, everything I hear about is like they get locked into like these 5-year software contracts and there's no way out. I heard some like one carrier and they literally like close their bank account to get out of it. So it's like that's nuts. People shouldn't prey on us. But on our phone call, the number one thing that I prepped for this, and we didn't talk about it today, is what's everybody listening to this week?
That's right. Hopefully, Drayage Junkies.
Well, I thought we were talking music. I went to like my deep cut albums. Like, what am I going to bring out to impress people?
Oh man.
So I'll kick it off. So I am listening this week. I was listening to. So my dad is a big time funk lover, and I've had Tower of Power on repeat. So if you guys don't know what Tower of Power is, it's like a niche, still touring funk band from the 70s and 80s. And the number one song you got to check out is "What Is Hip."
Okay.
Yeah, dude, I'm gonna have to check that out. I love me some funk. I was listening to some Funkadelic earlier Sunday.
Tightest horn section in the business.
All right. Yeah, I'm about to go see Widespread Panic for 3 days this week here in Nashville. So I've been jamming them, a little bit of Fish, dude. I'm a dirty hippie sometimes, so you gotta forgive me.
I'm just an 80s rock kind of guy.
That dude, always, man. Steve got some stones stuck in my head on the way up the mats.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. Next week we have Mr. Robert Patterson, not to be confused with Robert Peterson, Pedro Potato, but he is the inventor and owner of the pigtail widget. If you don't know what that is, you have to tune in to find out. Mr. Talmo uses them for his trucks, and we brought a little box of them to Matt's, and they were gone in a heartbeat, man. People love those things, so be sure to tune in for that. And thank you again for watching, and we will see y'all next week. Stay junky.